Hello, my friends. Douglas V. Gibbs here, and this is the Mr. Constitution Hour by Douglas V. Gibbs. Glad to be here. Last Thursday morning, we had a pretty good crowd over there at Rumble. YouTube, BitChute, still trying to figure it out. Hopefully, we can build this thing. This program that I am doing here at 8 p.m. Pacific, so that's 11 o'clock Eastern, so maybe it's a little late for a few of you. But this is the show that was on KCBQ, The Answer San Diego, and KPRZ, K-Praise, the Christian station in San Diego. And we've discontinued that on AM/FM radio, and we migrated it here onto Rumble and YouTube and BitChute. So for those of you who are watching, glad you're here. Welcome to the program. For those of you who are old, I shouldn't say old, long-time viewers, long-time listeners. Yeah, I mean, some of us are old, I guess, but a long time. Glad you're here, especially those who have been around a while. Appreciate you guys. Let's adjust that camera just a little bit. Lot to talk about as always, and let's begin with Donald J. Trump's trip to China. For those who've been long-time viewers, listeners, readers of what I do talk about, you know that I'm Constitution first. I'm not a Republican because I love the party. I'm a Republican because it's closer to what I believe when it comes to Constitution and my Christian beliefs and all that jazz. When Trump came along, at first I was a little, what's the word? Skeptical. Businessman. I knew a little bit about him. I mean, I remembered him from the USFL, the New Jersey Generals, and I've heard about some of his business exploits, but I hadn't really paid close attention to him. I don't get in, and he kind of became like, the celebrity type, right? After a while. Where in what was that show? The one he'd tell people you're fired, the Apprentice, right? Yeah, I'm looking over at my wife here.
The Apprentice, yes.
Yeah, The Apprentice, and I don't think I watched a single episode of that show. I didn't pay attention to who the man was, and so back in 2015, he's descending down this golden escalator, and I see that my wife and I are watching the news or something, and it wasn't live. It was, showing later. And at one point he says, I want to build a great big, beautiful wall. And he was referring to the immigration issue. And my wife turns to me, says, that's my guy. Now, my wife is an immigrant. Her family, I mean, she was a little baby when they came here, but her family did it the right way. Her dad, participated in a program that helped him save money so he could afford to do it. And they went through, and so her attitude with illegal aliens has always been that they were a slap in her dad's face because he did it the right way. I wasn't so sure when she said, that's my guy. I waited until he was president, and about 2 months into his presidency, his 45 and 47, I started coming around a little bit. I like the guy. Over time, and I had read The Art of the Deal prior to him becoming president. I read it again his first year in his presidency. I don't remember when. And it helped me understand the man. And I've gotten to the point where I've realized Donald J. Trump operates at a level way above everybody else. Nobody can touch him. It amazes me. He's thinking 18 moves ahead while everybody else is trying to figure out what to have for breakfast. And and I remember my mom telling me one time that back in 93, I think it was, and Donald Trump had given an interview, and he's saying today what he said. He said yesterday, day before, 93 in the 80s, the same thing he's saying today. He wasn't necessarily a Republican or a Democrat, and really, I don't even think he's Republican now. He's an independent, but he couldn't win as an independent, so he had to choose the Republican Party because it's closest to what he wanted. And he's saying the same thing he's always said. Our politicians, not picking parties, didn't say Democrats, didn't say, our politicians are making bad deals. They don't know what they're doing. If I was running the country, I would do it a different way. And so he is. And it's got the establishment out of whack because they can't control the man. They don't know what to do with him. And so watching all of this, it's an amazing thing to watch, to be honest with you. And so now we come up to China, what's going on here with this trip. And his journey to Beijing, it represented a masterclass in his usual way of operating. Pragmatic, no-nonsense approach to politics, diplomacy that prioritizes national interest, practical outcomes, power dynamics over ideology, morality, ethical principles. His realpolitik approach, and I said this earlier on Constitution Radio on KMET. I wrote this in an article, but it's so true. It would have made Bismarck not in approval. The founding fathers, when they created this country, I'm a firm believer that they based the executive branch, Article 2 of the Constitution, on George Washington. A no-nonsense guy. George Washington wasn't either ideology. There was Alexander Hamilton, who had this big government idea. And then there was Jefferson, who was more of a laissez-faire type personality. They both liked the Constitution for different reasons. Hamilton liked the Constitution because it created a bigger government. He just didn't think it went far enough. Jefferson liked the Constitution because it created a central government for certain issues where you need a lion, but yet put that lion in the cage and put shackles on its ankles so that it couldn't be unleashed on the people. And George Washington kind of was a little bit of both. And he was a strong presence in the room. He was tall. He caught people's attention. He knew how to talk to people. He knew how to listen. He knew how to conduct certain affairs. And so, and through their language in the Constitution, they envisioned a president like that who would conduct foreign affairs with American interest paramount, with a firm hand, energetic. That, my friends, is precisely what Trump, that's him. He is that president they were writing about in Article 2. And what he has accomplished during his high-stakes meeting with Xi Jinping, masterclass. The Trump administration entered these talks with China with a clear-eyed understanding of economic leverage, and they've already set the stage. We went into China from a point of strength. Venezuela, Iran, hey, we got your oil buddies, and you can buy some from us. Trump didn't go in there to appease China like previous leaders. He didn't go in there to let the bully push him around. He's a bull in a china shop. And while he was there, he was operating in a manner the founding fathers would have appreciated the economic leverage, considering their mercantilist era they came from. Trump secured significant commitments from China regarding purchases of American agricultural products, Boeing aircraft, energy resources. These aren't mere symbolic gestures. They represent tangible benefits to American workers and industries, particularly in the agricultural heartland that forms much of Trump's political base. The proposed U.S.-China Board of Trade to manage commerce in non-sensitive goods demonstrates Trump's practical approach to international relations. Practical, pragmatic, these are words that describe Trump. And as with his Board of Peace, he seeks to create institutional frameworks that can outlast any single administration while protecting American interests. This mirrors the constitutional principle of creating lasting structures that will outlive his presidency rather than relying solely on executive whims, which is the opposite of what he's accused of. He's accused of being in it for him and his riches and his power. What? No, he's doing things for the future, for future administrations. The ballroom's that too, if you think about it. And the rare earth minerals agreement deserves particular attention. When China previously blocked exports of these critical elements, Trump initially stood firm before eventually securing a more favorable arrangement. This strategic flexibility, a nod to his businessman background that has taught him to know when to hold firm and when to negotiate, demonstrates the kind of pragmatic leadership that has characterized America's most effective foreign policy moments. President Trump appropriately pressed Xi Jinping on China's economic and strategic support for Iran. And remember, we are operating from a position of strength. We've got Iran, we got Venezuela, we've got your oil, buddy. And then there's that little route through Indonesia, Malaysia, kind of where the oil, and we've got our interests there too. We're making deals there too. China has nothing to stand on. You want your oil, you've got to work with us, buddy. That's kind of, I think, Trump's approach going in. And this direct approach reflects an understanding that the president's primary responsibility is to protect American interests from hostile regimes enabled by foreign power. Very Jeffersonian stance. I've told people so many times, Trump reminds me of Thomas Jefferson. They think I'm nuts. You study Jefferson's presidency, how he was attacked. I mean, to this day, there are lies made up about him that we still believe. Like the one that he was making babies with his slave girl, Sally Heming, and that's a different story for a different time. I'll do a video on that sometime, but that's not true. The discussion about China potentially increasing its U.S. oil purchases to reduce dependence on the Strait of Hormuz, that's the kind of creative diplomacy, and that was set up by other things. Trump was already thinking China when he hit Iran, when he hit Venezuela, when he did other things. And now, because he's able to do that, he's got China possibly dependent on our oil and our actions, reducing their dependence on the Strait of Hormuz, increasing U.S. oil purchases. What this does is it creates peace. It diffuses geopolitical tensions without military confrontation. Kind of puts them in their place. I imagine China kind of being like, a bully in a schoolyard. And you got this bully in the schoolyard, and he's picking on everybody, he's pushing everybody around, and nobody can seem to get him under control. So then a bunch of guys get together in a group, and they handle as a group, like some treaty organization like NATO or something. And they still push them all around. The bully still pushes everybody around. So how do you get the bully under control? You bring someone in who's as big as the bully, but is not a bully, but he can be a bully to the bully. That's Trump. He's the big kid in the yard that's not going to put up with the bully's junk. And he's going to stand there toe-to-toe with him, and the bully backs down. And that's what Trump is doing. Trump is working on dismantling the support structures that enable Iranian aggression, that enable the possibility of Chinese aggression. And then when it came to Taiwan, Trump maintained the delicate balance that has characterized U.S. policy for decades while still authorizing $11 billion arms package, the largest weapons sale ever to the island. This demonstrates Trump's understanding that effective foreign policy requires both strength and strategic ambiguity. Xi Jinping's warning that mishandling Taiwan will put U.S.-China relationship in great jeopardy. Trump's like, and? See, Obama and Biden, they're like, oh yeah, well, we don't want to, we don't want to rock the. Trump's like, and he met it with the appropriate American resolve. Hey, I know what you think, but I'm going to make it clear to you, China, the U.S. has a commitment to Taiwan, and we will not abandon it. And I'm as big of a kid in the schoolyard as you are. So what makes this trip particularly significant is how Trump blended his signature business acumen with presidential gravitas. By bringing top executives from Apple and Boeing and Tesla and BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, he demonstrated that American economic strength and diplomatic power are two sides of the same coin. This public-private partnership approach was a brilliant move, harnesses all the elements of national power to advance American interests. It's the same thing he did with North Korea during his first term. And he got Fat Boy Slim out there in North Korea. I can't remember Kim Jong-un or something like that. The dictator. He got him talking to him. Say, hey, I got some business ideas. You'll go down as a great leader. You'll be rich. You'll have hotels on the beach. I don't know, something like that. He did the same thing with some of the Gaza people. He makes deals. That's what he does. That's what Trump does. He makes deals. And Trump's Beijing trip demonstrates precisely the kind of leadership that Trump possesses. And it's the kind of leadership the founding fathers would expect from an energetic president. Trump has utilized his role as president to advance American interests through strength, diplomacy, pragmatic negotiation, and by securing trade deals, addressing threats from Iran, maintaining disciplined positions on Taiwan. Trump has once again shown that constitutional governance and effective foreign policy are not opposing concepts, but complementary ones. So I've been evaluating his trip success, been going through it, and really in the end, here's what I've noticed. Well, here's what I've seen. Trump advanced American interest. That's the point, right? And by that measure, the only measure that really truly matters, the Beijing summit represents a significant achievement for President of the United States and for the United States. And the thing is, what amazes me about him, because when Trump, he goes to China, he knows that they're the adversary. He knows they play games. I mean, what did they do when they left China? The first thing that happened was everything that the Chinese gave them went into the dustbin, into the trash can. The burner phones went there, any gifts, all of it into the trash can. China can't be trusted. But he goes in, oh, Xi Jinping's my friend. We have a good relationship. Oh, I just love the kids jumping up and down and cheering. He knows it was all optics. It was a bunch of hooey for the most part. It's the communist thing with the wax fruit in the windows of their grocery stores, like you saw in North Korea. They put up this optic, this image, and it's all a bunch of hooey. He understands, though. Trump understands, because he's a master at relationships, that relationships is a big part of doing business. It's a part of the art of the deal. I mean, before I moved this show here, it was on AM/FM radio in San Diego. I've still got one show left on radio. It'll probably be gone by the beginning of July. Moving everything online. But the reason I got 15 years in radio. The reason why I did well enough to stay on the air for 15 years was relationships. Good relationships with the station managers, with the general managers, with the advertisers. When I convinced somebody to advertise, they didn't stay as an advertiser. When I developed a relationship with them and they came to believe in what I'm doing, they became longtime advertisers. One of them, who he's retiring this year, is one of the reasons why I'm getting ready to shut down the KMET show. He's been with me since 2012. And, the longest and the most prosperous relationships are developed through good relationship activities. And I think this is a fundamental truth that transcends politics, business. Relationships are the bedrock of sustained success. And Trump, the way he uses it, its connection to the art of the deal is critical. The core philosophy of the art of the deal, the book that Trump wrote, wasn't just about transactional negotiation tactics. It was about understanding human psychology, building leverage, creating long-term value through personal connection. Trump's approach with Xi Jinping, like his approach with business partners, political elite allies, and even adversaries, has always been rooted in establishing a personal rapport that can weather disagreements and serve as a foundation for future negotiations. This is a concept that often gets lost in modern business and political analysis, which tends to over-index on structural factors, institutional processes, and abstract metrics. The reality is that human beings make decisions, and human beings are fundamentally relational creatures. We are more likely to trust, compromise with, and go the extra mile for people we know and like. In my radio experience, I saw this firsthand. Advertisers could have made purely rational calculations about reach, frequency, conversion rates, and I probably wouldn't have gotten a whole lot of advertisers. It's a small show on an independent station. They probably weren't going to get the return. But I developed the relationship, and what they saw was what I was doing, how I talked to my audience, the message I was putting out there, the constitutional angle. And they saw me as more than just a vendor. I became a partner. A partner, the relationship, it wasn't about whether or not they get a return. It was about what message I was putting out, and they believed in that message. The relationship created a stickiness that no competitor could easily break through, even if they offered a better price or more listeners, because it wasn't about that, because of the relationship. So in politics, it's the difference between a fleeting legislative victory and a lasting coalition. In business, it's the difference between a one-time sale and a lifetime customer. In diplomacy, and this is where Trump is really rising to the occasion, it's the difference between a fragile treaty and a durable peace. The mastery of relationships isn't just a soft skill. It's a strategic advantage that compounds over time. It creates trust, which reduces transaction costs and enables more creative problem solving. It generates goodwill, which serves as a reservoir of support during difficult times. And it builds a network of allies who will vouch for you and open doors you didn't even know existed. And so I recognize this relationship capability, the skill in Trump's approach. And here's the thing, whether you admire Trump or not, whether you support him or not, it's a timeless principle of human interaction. I've heard this so many times. To know Trump is to love him. He can even get people who don't like him to speak favorably and to work with him and talk to him. I mean, Bill Maher, the dude had dinner or lunch, I can't remember which, with Trump. The guy's like on a show saying, hey, guy's a nice guy. It was a great time. I enjoyed my time. I still don't agree with him on most things, but I kind of get it now. I get his, and that's why he's not just merely successful. He's truly influential. So Trump's relationship building skills has been a defining feature of his political approach across the board. I mean, the skill manifests differently than traditional diplomacy. Trump is out there making deals, talking to countries, using diplomacy that nobody's ever seen before, because he's not following the rules. He's following his skills. And beyond China, there's all kinds of notable examples where his relationship management has yielded political advantages. I mentioned earlier, North Korea, Kim Jong-un, the undictator. Fat boy, whatever. And Trump broke decades of diplomatic protocol by engaging directly in personal diplomacy with the guy. Their summit meetings in Singapore and Hanoi, while not achieving complete denuclearization, did reduce tensions, created a channel for communication that previous administrations lacked. Trump's ability to establish personal rapport with Kim, exchanging letters and complimenting each other. Hey, I like the guy, he's a buddy. It demonstrated his comfort with unconventional relationship building, even with adversaries. In the Middle East, Trump leveraged personal relationships to advance the Abraham Accords between Israel and several Arab nations. The United Arab Emirates right now is building up pipelines and working with us and standing. His close ties with leaders like Benjamin Netanyahu and Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan helped broker these normalization agreements that had eluded previous administrations. Trump's transactional approach, offering recognition, weapons deals, policy concessions in exchange for diplomatic breakthroughs, proved effective with leaders who shared his deal-making mindset. And with European leaders, Trump's relationship style has been more confrontational, to the point where they're starting to call him daddy, but still strategically focused. His public criticism of NATO allies for not meeting defense spending targets while straining relationships also pressured several countries to increase their military expenditures. His personal dynamic with leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Boris Johnson fluctuated between warmth and tension, but always maintained a direct personal channel that traditional diplomatic processes sometimes lack. In Latin America, Trump developed relationships with right-leaning leaders, and I don't know if I like calling them right-leaning leaders because they're right-leaning compared to the lefties. I mean, the Constitution and the Constitution is dead center, and Ed is in the chat there. Rumbles, hey man, I didn't know you were going to be on. Hey man, it's family night. I know. You can always watch it later. You don't have to watch it live. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you. But anyway, getting back to like Latin America stuff, and everybody wants to call like Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro and Colombia's Ivan Duque right-leaning. Well, they're not right-leaning. Right-leaning is believing in a smaller government than what the Constitution calls for. Constitution is dead center. Anything to the right of the Constitution would be smaller government, more limited government than what the Constitution calls for. You start heading towards anarchy. So really there isn't such thing as right-leaning. But but sometimes that's the terminology we use. But you get these leaders that are not complete lefty knuckleheads. And Trump's talking to them. Of course, he talks to the knuckleheads too. But he's creating this regional bloc that aligns with his America First policies. These personal connections help coordinate policies on Venezuela and immigration issues that benefited his political agenda domestically. So what makes Trump's relationship building unique is his transactional nature. Unlike traditional diplomacy that emphasizes shared values, institutional ties, Trump's approach focuses on personal leverage, mutual benefit, direct communication. He's shown a willingness to both charm and pressure leaders, often in the same relationship, to achieve his policy goals. This style has clearly worked with certain personalities, particularly those who appreciate directness and deal-making, but has strained relationships with leaders who prefer more traditional diplomatic protocols. But even they start to come around because they start to realize, Trump he reminds me of certain people that I've had in my life. He can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Even if you're adversaries, he'll work with you, he'll talk to you, he'll give you that chance. Diplomacy first. But if you want to thumb your nose at him like Iran, no problem. Bring in the troops, bring in the ships, bring in the missiles. He has no problem doing that. The effectiveness of his relationship building ultimately depends on matching his approach with counterparts who respond to similar incentives, but sometimes even those that don't respond, he gets them to respond. It's an amazing thing. Watching him. And, as I watch him and understand, when it comes to relationships, I mean, that's kind of his thing. And meanwhile, his adversaries, they're screaming, they're yelling, they're freaking out. You know what? I'm going to do something that I normally do on the radio show. I'm going to take a little break. There's no advertising here. This is just a couple of little things. It's a minute and a half, 2 minutes, just so I can go get myself a Dr. Pepper and wet my whistle and all that jazz. But let's play a little break here, and I will be right back. So let's share screen. Let's do this. Do this. And this. Okay, there we go. Welcome back. I put that together. Those little ad things. Let's put me back here as big center here. So those little when I would advertise my advertisers, the sponsors of the program, All-Star Collision in Corona was one of them, Asgard Energy in San Diego. And then in between the ads, we would throw those things in there. Of course, it would be the audio only. I created what you saw, but I love those things. I've got a couple of others. One's like, see, one of them is Schoolhouse Rock, and one of them is One Listener at a Time. And so I'll create some more of those. They're kind of fun. Nice little break in the middle. Go grab a drink. Hurry up, make a sandwich, whatever. But. My Achilles health, Dr. Pepper, heal not health. I've been drinking Dr. Pepper since I was in middle school. Now, granted, I got the zero sugar one going here, so it tastes closer to real Dr. Pepper than the diet Dr. Pepper. That stuff has a weird aftertaste. Definitely wets the whistle. But I will say this. This is pretty awesome before I go to the next topic. So I said before I played that little ad thing, I was going to take a break, go grab a Dr. Pepper. The moment my wife heard me say that, I could see out the corner of my eye. She got up, she went to the fridge, she brought me a DP. Dudes and ladies, I am so blessed. I'm so blessed, man. My wife, we've been in August 18th. It'll be August 18th, right? Yeah. Yeah, a husband that remembers his anniversary date. It'll be 42 years. And trust me, it was a roller coaster early on. Took us about 21 years to quit beating each other over the head, and then probably another, about another 18 years to finally. Now we're up here, just the two of us where we live here on the Oregon coast. And we're finally getting to know each other really well. And it turns out we don't mind each other after all. Couldn't stand each other when we were younger, but now that we're older and we understand a little better, you know. So for those of you who are like, oh man, I can't figure this marriage thing out, it's horrible. No, just patience, man. Patience. So anyway, all right. So back off to the next subject, next topic. So one of the things that's been cracking me up. Okay, so real quick. So Ed asked me in the chat room, let me know what your schedule is. All right, so I've always been on Tuesdays at 3:30 Pacific on my friend Ron's channel. You go to MrConstitution.com. That's mr-constitution.com. You can find that one. Then this show, this Mr. Constitution Hour that I'm doing, Mr. Constitution Hour will be Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's 1 p.m. Eastern. And Saturday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. And of course, you can watch them anytime because this records and all sort of stuff. And then on Saturdays from 1 to 3 Pacific in the afternoon, I am on KMET 1490 AM, and you can call in. I don't have a chat room there, but you can call into the program. And I have 2 co-hosts on that program. And that show probably in July is going to migrate just like Mr. Constitution Hour did. And then on Fridays from 2 to 4 Pacific, I am on Patriot Soapbox, have a live show. I am going to start recording those and putting them on my video channels. And then I'm also on Sunday nights from 5 to 7 Pacific with my good friend Alan Myers. And I'm going to start doing smaller videos. So there you go. So Ed in the chat room, thank you. Ed, real quick, Ed, I got a chance to meet him about a year ago when I did a round country tour, did a bunch of events, and my wife is a huge football fan. So we went to the Football Hall of Fame, and Ed was in the area. Ed and Mel, who was about an hour and a half south, and they both came up and had lunch with me. And Mel cracked me up. He's like, man, it took me an hour and a half to get up here. It was worth it. All right, it's cool. But anyway, Ed, have a good night. Check out the show tomorrow. That's my schedule for now. And I'll put it on DouglasVGibbs.com. We're still, DouglasVGibbs.com is a good website, but there's a few things I don't have exactly the way I want. So I'm working with the website guy. He broke his foot, so he's not going to be able to do anything until next week. There's all kinds of stuff that's always going on. But anyway, all right. So get back to my topic at hand. So here's something. So I've talked about Donald J. Trump's trip to China, talked about relationships. I've talked about how I believe he's the right man at the right time doing the right job as as president of the United States. And it's funny because BitChute, where are you? BitChute is not playing this live, even though it says it is. I'll have to check that out later. But anyway, so, but YouTube is, and Rumble is. So, and here's the thing. I'm playing these shows in 3 different places, and way it's looking, 2 of them. YouTube, Rumble, and the BitChute, and all 3 of them Douglas V. Gibbs. But anyway, get back to what I want to talk about. So Trump, he's the guy. And what thrust him into position to be president was his talk on immigration. It goes back to what I said at the very beginning of today's show. He's coming down that golden escalator. I want to build a great, big, beautiful wall. And my wife, who's Mexican born, came here as a child, said, that's my guy. She was talking wall before he was. Now, Ed, who was just in the chat room talking to everybody, he's kind of wrote a Substack not too long ago about, the wall hasn't been finished, but yet we're working. What's going on? So I'm going to respond to that. I've actually taken his Substack article. Originally, I broke it up into 9 pieces. Now I've broken it up into even more, and I'm going to address each of them. And I'll probably talk about those on these shows. If you have a topic you want me to talk about, or you're saying, hey, man, I've got a question about the Constitution or whatever, go to DouglasVGibbs.com. DouglasVGibbs.com. It's my name. It's right there on the screen. Right? You look. If you're watching this video, You're looking at the screen right there. See where my finger's pointing? www.douglasvgibbs.com. Go there. And on the upper side of this of the link bar, it says Ask Doug. Click that, fill out the little form, and it'll shoot me an email. But to a special email address I use just for that site and just for listener requests, things like that. Or you can mention something in the comment section. I'll come across it too. Anyway, so throw that stuff at me if you want me to talk about something particular. Okay, now I get back to immigration. So for Democrats, immigration is a losing issue. What thrust Trump into popularity was his stance on immigration. Build the wall, deport illegal aliens, especially the criminal aliens, seal up the border, don't let people cross. But Democrats, and it's funny because if you look at old videos of Democrats, they were all about stopping illegal aliens, about stopping illegal immigration. There's video after video of people like Pelosi and Schumer and Biden as a senator and so on. So, because see, they at the time, they were in the pockets of the labor unions. And the labor unions didn't want the competition, didn't want this cheap labor out there. But now the Democrats have decided that illegal aliens, illegal immigration, that's better for their cause, better for their power grab, their lust for power than working with the unions. And they're losing the unions. The unions, I mean, we've been watching this. The unions are going, hey, we're with Trump now. For Democrats, immigration has become standing with illegal aliens. I shouldn't say immigration, because immigration and illegal alien, that's something different. We call it the immigration issue. My wife's an immigrant, an illegal alien is not. And the Democrats have placed their lust for power ahead of truth, ahead of America's interests, best interests, the voices of the voters, and reality itself. The Democrats seem to be compelled to stand against what's best for America and continuously scream for open borders and no deportation while blindly losing grasp of the difference between those who cross the border illegally and immigrants who follow the proper protocols. The word immigrant has become synonymous for anyone and everyone who comes into the country legally or illegally, law-abiding or not. Any and all criminal aliens, terrorists, international spies, they're all just simply immigrants in the eyes of the Democrats. So Donald J. Trump, like I said earlier, was thrust into the presidency due to his strong stance on immigration back in 2016, 2015. And his famous line about building a great big beautiful wall was the promise that caught the attention of voters. Democrats lost that election largely due to Trump's promise to execute immigration laws. And then they doubled down on their immigration stance during Biden's presidency. Now they've tripled down and are calling for abolishing ICE, ending even the deportations of criminal aliens, and have decided even the use of violence against federal immigration personnel is a reasonable way to handle things. Democrats don't seem to understand that immigration is one of those policies that is sinking their ship. President Biden faced a 64.8% disapproval on his immigration policies. And since then, the Democrats have stormed ICE facilities, have had margaritas with a criminal alien deported to El Salvador, have tried to injure and kill immigration officers with their vehicles, fists, guns. Top Democrats have screamed into the microphone about how racist Trump's immigration policies are, casting themselves as political martyrs and promising open borders if ever they return to power. The Democrats do not wish to enforce immigration law. They are globalist Marxists who desire the worldwide removal of national borders and any national sovereignty. They believe in an imaginary Lenin-esque, and when I say Lenin, I don't mean Vladimir Lenin, I mean John Lennon. You know, that song Imagine. They believe in an imaginary Lenin-esque world where we are this great big brotherhood of man. If we would only just get to know each other, we'd all live in peace, picking daisies and skipping down the communist road together as we smell the flowers and the unity and the big giant world of reality disagrees. This is why when Pennsylvania Democratic congressional candidate Dr. Ayla, I don't know how to pronounce the first name, Stanford, was asked who should enforce immigration laws if Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, was abolished, she didn't know how to answer. No one had asked her the question. Well, they need to abolish ICE, abolish ICE. Okay, well, if ICE is gone, who enforces immigration policy? She knew it would be political suicide if she said that there should be no enforcement whatsoever. That's the answer the Democrats are telling us, however. If they abolish ICE, if they abolish Border Patrol, and if they create an America with an open border while letting anyone who makes their way into this country vote so that they can stay in power forever, then there's got to be absolutely no immigration enforcement. Stanford's response to the question was, because see, she couldn't say, oh, well, we just want no immigration enforcement at all. It would be suicide. So her answer was, oh, that's a good question. You can pause because I just want to think about it for a minute. She could not immediately answer, and she knew she couldn't admit the truth. But at the same time, it would go against her party's narrative if she named an agency, any agency, to enforce immigration law as being allowed to enforce immigration law, and she'd be gone faster than Eric Swalwell. The Democrats have dug themselves into a hole. They pushed to defund the police, and now that they've backed off from it publicly, and trust me, they still want to replace police officers with social workers because that's the Marxist thing to do. They have also been pushing the sanctuary policy talking point that local authorities must not enforce immigration, nor even cooperate with federal authorities, or cooperate with federal authorities regarding immigration in any way. That means no coordination. That means that local police doesn't communicate. If an illegal alien is picked up for a DUI stop and they discover that the driver is an illegal alien, then Democrats don't want the state or local police to even pick up the phone to tell any federal agency they have federal fugitive in custody. I've got a neighbor, and I was talking to him and I said, well, the Democrats and Trump want, local police to do their job. No, they don't. But if you're going to pick up somebody doing your job, and it turns out he's a federal fugitive because he's an illegal alien, pick up the phone. Hey, I got your guy. When we're done processing him for his DUI, he's yours. That's all we're asking. I mean, immigration law must not only be enforced by the federal government, which is the constitutional answer, but if these people want to abolish ICE, abolish the Border Patrol, so then who does indeed enforce immigration law? And the answer is clear: nobody. Stanford realized she could not say nobody. So when the interviewer told Stanford that a pause in the interview was not possible, Stanford said that the authority to enforce immigration law should shift away from the White House. Well, not the executive branch, Stanford said. So not the president. It belongs to Congress. Stanford went on to criticize the Trump administration, accusing the president of enforcing immigration laws for political reasons rather than public safety. She said it belongs with Congress because the executive branch, and specifically the president, is self-serving, and many of the decisions that he is making is not about the American people. It's not about our safety. And the interviewer pressed, following up by noting that immigration laws and border enforcement would still exist even if ICE were dismantled. Again, asking who would handle enforcement. But who should be on the ground enforcing, they asked. I mean, there's immigration laws, absolutely, in this country, and a border. So if it's not ICE, if you've abolished ICE, who handles it? Now's the question. Stanford, remember, running for Congress in Pennsylvania, said, well, any new system would need to be built after ICE is dismantled. So you can't, once you abolish, you have to rebuild, she said. We're at a point where you can't reform something that is a paramilitary organization that's taking human life. It goes back to their abolish the police. Oh, they're a bunch of bullies and they're arresting people. Let's make them social workers. She then went on to explain that you couldn't even use ICE, the ICE name. The term has become so negative. Stanford argued the United States should combine border security with humanitarian assistance for migrants. You know, like the get rid of the police and replace them with social workers idea. It's the same stuff. Get rid of enforcement, replace it with social workers. Now, this is what they do. This is what they believe because it's in line with communism. Stanford is in line with the communism, as are the Democrats. It's Cleon Skousen's list of 45 communist goals to destroy America. Number 32 is support any social movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture, education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health, etc. The beginning of number 8 says transfer some powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. The list of Marxist communist goals to destroy America say get rid of enforcement, give it over to social workers. Meanwhile, as long as the executive branch is not in the hands of the Democrats, they wish it to be neutralized. Then once they're back in power, the president will then take on a more dictatorial role, bypassing Congress if necessary, reminiscent of Barack Obama's comment, I have a pen and a phone. The basis of the argument also flies in the face of what the Constitution's all about. Polybius, an ancient Greek philosopher, observed how the Roman Republic assigned different functions to different bodies. Montesquieu later articulated this more systematically as separation of powers in the spirit of the laws. The founding fathers understood the importance of this concept, assigning legislative powers to the Congress, Article 1, Section 1, and executive powers to the president, Article 2, Section 1. What that means is the power of being lawmakers and lawgivers resides in different branches on purpose. The lawmakers must not be the lawgivers. The lawgivers must not be the lawmakers. The same government does both, but the branches must be separated. Despite Stanford's plea, Congress may not constitutionally execute the laws, and believing they should is ignorant of a crucial understanding of proper constitutional structure. The framers of the Constitution specifically designed the system to prevent tyranny by distributing the powers of government in different directions, ensuring that those who write the laws are not the same people who enforce them. You know, like a king would. And this is critical to understand. So while these people are saying no kings, they're calling for a king just through Congress. To give immigration enforcement to Congress is to centralize that power completely with no checks and balances. That's what kings do. That's what tyrannies do. So while accusing Trump of operating like a king, the Democrats are advocating that Congress, under their control, ultimately must be given king-like powers. The separation of one branch, creating immigration law, and the other executing immigration law is a part of the system of checks and balances in our system. Congress can pass laws, but they cannot execute them. The president can execute and enforce laws, but cannot write them unilaterally. This is why the Democrats are sunk on the immigration narrative. Their aim is to either violate the very Constitution they claim President Trump is violating, or do away with any governance over immigration at all, which is suicidal for a country, and even most Democratic voters would not support. This is what they're doing. This is what their stance is. And if you don't like what they're saying, they'll do what they can to cover it up. Because, see, if they told you what they were actually about, you wouldn't vote for them. It's the reason why they play the name games and, a bunch of racists, white supremacists. They cannot win in the arena of ideas. And when they do get into the arena of ideas, they either don't have an answer or they lie. Because if they told you the truth, you wouldn't want anything to do with it. And every once in a while, they show exactly what they are, but then they try to do what they can to cover it up. And because they have so many players embedded deep down in the system, they think they get away with it, and they have been. I mean, the recent testimony of the CIA whistleblower, I don't know if I like calling him a whistleblower. He's not getting whistleblower protections, but he's blowing the whistle, I guess. But anyway, James Erdman III. Erdman was before the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He's pulling back the curtain on one of the most disturbing betrayals of public trust in American history. He talked about COVID-19. He talked about how originally they knew it came out of the Wuhan, China lab. They knew it was a lab leak. But the problem is Fauci was attached to it. And Fauci had the CIA's ear. He was interfering, influencing, whatever. And so they, in the middle of the night, anonymously rewrote it. They changed the origins of COVID from a lab leak to some type of natural release, natural origin theory, I think they call it. They were all ready to call it a lab leak, but Fauci and scientists close to him influenced our government. They were in on it. And CIA experts received exceptional performance reviews and bonuses by changing that assessment. They weren't necessarily bribed, but they were awarded after they did it. Fauci repeatedly injected himself into the intelligence community's assessments. And he did it through his influence over different groups and advisory panels and intelligence community, listened to his, and everybody was listening. Even Trump believed what he was saying at first. He's the expert. He's been around forever. He's doing this stuff. And it turns out he was working with North Carolina virologist Ralph Barrick, a close collaborator of the Wuhan Institute of Virology on engineering coronaviruses. Erdman testified that Fauci twice inserted himself into intelligence community deliberations about the outbreak. And then as this is going on, you've got the Biden administration concealing information about the COVID vaccine pediatric deaths, lying about it, covering it up, suppressing details about COVID shot pediatric deaths, as well as the total death count. And you've got that going on. You got Fauci inserting. You got the stupidity of the 6 feet and the masks. I didn't wear a mask. Everybody's like, oh, you're going to kill everybody. You're wearing a mask. If the mask works, that's good enough. What do you care if I'm not wearing one? Well, my mask don't work unless your mask is on. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Well, you got 6 feet. That will keep us from getting sick. No, viruses are like smoke. Once smoke gets into a room, it ain't stopping at 6 feet. Dummies. If you don't feel good, don't go into public. If you do, go into public. Oh, well, some people's carrying. Well, then allow people's immune systems to handle it. Sit there shutting down churches, but leaving strip joints and liquor stores open. Junk. And Erdman testified that the CIA not only suppressed the truth, but retaliated against personnel who didn't follow the narrative they pushed. They even terminated a contractor who favored the lab leak theory. Whistleblower said that there was thousands of documents related to COVID's origins. Tulsi Gabbard's been working on the release. I think it was like last October, November. The CIA went in and seized those documents, along with other documents. MK Ultra, JFK. What's the CIA covering up? What are they hiding? And why isn't Fauci in handcuffs? I mean, and criminal prosecutions alone will not solve the deeper problem revealed by the testimony of Erdman and the things that we already know. We need fundamental reform. Don't get me wrong. I want the criminal prosecutions. I want the handcuffs. I want the orange jumpsuits. But we need to make sure that these intelligence agencies are serving us, not manipulating the government that we have elected. I mean, we've got this, through this testimony, we've got this rare glimpse of a shadow government, some people call it the deep state, that operates within our intelligence agencies, that believes that it is above the law, that operates in a manner beyond. It thinks it controls the president. It dictates to Tulsi Gabbard. It's there to serve them. This pattern of behavior, from suppressing lab leak conclusions, concealing vaccine safety data, seizing historical documents, it paints a picture of an intelligence apparatus that views itself as above accountability. The CIA's actions demonstrate an institutional arrogance that is fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional republic and the rule of law. As Senator Rand Paul emphasized during the hearing, closed-door testimony doesn't provide oversight, and public testimony provides oversight. The same principle applies to declassification of historical documents. True accountability requires transparency, not selective disclosure designed to protect institutional interests. The answer is transparency. All right, gotta go. The hour is up. Appreciate you spending the time with me. Enjoyed the time with you. We're actually went like 2 minutes over, but I think we'll be okay with that. It's a nice thing about not being on the radio. Radio, man, the moment the show's over, bam, that's it. It's over. They play the closing music. I do have an intro and an outro that I normally use for my videos. I have not set it up for this yet. So all you need to know is this: united we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, and God bless you. Visit DouglasVGibbs.com. I write a lot of what I talk about. I write about, not all of it, but most of it. I write pretty much every day. I also put on the website promotions for the upcoming programs, and we're working on the site right now to get the whole schedule there. And don't forget, also, I've written a bunch of books. I've written 11 so far about the Constitution, about the 7 worst constitutional liars. I've written a history book, from the Saxons to the election of Jefferson, early American history. Check it out. Go to Amazon, find my books. We don't have a store right now. We used to shut it down, get it reopened in the future. Amazon's okay. Buy it through Amazon. You want to get it autographed? Go to Ask Doug at DouglasVGibbs.com. Type in, let me know. Been a pleasure spending the time with you. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.